Hey, Greg, good morning.
How are you? Happy mid-spring.
Yeah.
Beautiful there.
Green air, green and yellow, and all kinds of stuffed up. Did it snow this morning or anything, or is everything
No
good
snow
there?
in St. Louis. That's all good.
So you went from winter to summer.
Just
like always.
are battling the robins building nests on our front door every day.
Oh, what fun! Hey, I keep coming back to the same question as we go through Bitcoin and world religions. I don't know a lot about the other religions, not at all, but I keep coming back to the same thing. They all have something in common with Christianity, warning against dishonest money. The prohibition against false weights and measures is just about everywhere. No exploitation of poor people, honest dealings. In this episode, we're going to try, although we're not experts in it, we're going to try to cover the commonalities between Christianity and the world religions. And we'll make a case for cross-faith interest in Bitcoin and how it can help things in the world. And then we'll tie that structurally to what's going on in Iran. And you'll probably come away with a little bit more knowledge than you used to. Before we get started, you have to pay the bills. Please go to hodlandtees.org. Take a look at it. You can find these podcasts here. You can find other things that are useful in your journey in Bitcoin. And we would appreciate it if you'd follow us, like and share, and even buy some merch if you want to.
That's the podcast mantra. Like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah, I hate to sound like everybody else, but I, like everybody else, have to pay my bills. We've just developed these not long ago, got a couple of different colors. This is the actual original. You can see that. That's the original edit to represent a Satoshi. And a Satoshi is the building block of Bitcoin. So go on over there, take a look, and purchase something if you want something. Last week, we talked in a little bit of depth about Christianity and Bitcoin, and there were 5 pillars that we went through. I should let you talk a little bit, probably.
Yeah, open up that can of worms. I could go for a while. Yeah, just to put it, just to quickly recap a few verses from scriptures. Proverbs 11:1 says talks about the honest scale. Hard 21 million cap can never be changed, and it's absolutely an honest weight. Also in Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7 basically says the borrower is the slave to the lender. Fiat is built on debt. We talked about the parable of the talents, talked about stewardship of value. It's our spiritual responsibility to be good stewards of what we've been blessed with. In the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 1, verse 22 talks about rulers debasing the currency. That's as old as civilization. This is not new with the Federal Reserve System. And finally, Bitcoin. It's permissionless, censorship resistance. It's immutable. It can't be changed. This is the biblical ideal in the way it's written into the Bitcoin code. We're going to take a brief look at some of the other religions and see if there's some commonality there and what they have to say about money.
It is important to recognize, we know we're not the only faith in the world, but other faiths have a lot to say about money too. And the reason we're going through this is, you folks like us may be a little bit later into Bitcoin. You may be wondering whether to invest. You may be wondering whether this is real. Let me give you a warning. Don't buy into all the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that comes out of the media. The media, general media, is there to control your mind. And I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but they really are. And there is a long history that has to be overcome before the world moves on to a new currency. And we're making the case that Bitcoin can be the new currency. So let's talk briefly about these other world religions.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
I got to interrupt. I'm the older brother. I'm going to rein you in a little bit.
Oh, boy.
You use the I word again when you talked about Bitcoin. Invest. It's not wrong to talk about investing in Bitcoin, but we prefer to talk about a transition into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a new money. Bitcoin is a new money standard. When you talk about investing, you're talking about buying for a low number of dollars and selling it for a high number of dollars. That's not what we're espousing here. Sorry.
I stand corrected. Those of you that don't know, Greg got me into Bitcoin.
God got you into Bitcoin. He used me to help.
That's actually very true. We could go down that trail for a while. Let's talk quickly about these other world religions. Islam forbids it, forbids use of money in the wrong way. The Quran is unambiguous. It says a term called Riba is exploitative interest, and it's absolutely forbidden in the Quran. What most Muslims don't discuss openly is that the entire global fiat banking system is structurally built on interest and debt expansion. So it structurally is the antithesis of what Islam recommends. The Quran is unambiguous. It simply is against this kind of usury. Any other comment there? It sounds a lot like Christianity in that regard.
Well, let's just rewind the clock a little bit on these podcasts. When we talk about fiat currencies, and in the United States, that fiat is known as the Federal Reserve note, we talk about it being an instrument of debt. And that was hard for me to understand at first. So when we talk about it being an instrument of debt, when we get a paycheck, let's say we get $1,000 a week, it's not like they give us $950 and say the rest is interest. With the Federal Reserve note or any other fiat currency, whether it's in taxation or the unseen, unwritten taxation that we call inflation, they're going to get their interest.
Absolutely right. It takes 100 hours minimum to understand Bitcoin kind of fully, and I would say that I'm kind of a intelligent novice, if I can stretch a point. I still have a lot to learn about Bitcoin, but what I do know is it's the only money available that is at its core an honest weight and measure with no interest automatically. Bitcoin does not earn interest. It can't be inflated in that way. It requires no intermediary bank, and the monetary system of Bitcoin is far more aligned with these world religions than the current alternative, which is a manufactured, man-made alternative. Let's move on to Judaism, unless you have more comments on Islam.
I think what you're outlining here is that the Bitcoin standard structurally aligns with Islamic principles.
Yes, and Christian principles, of course.
Yep.
And it also has direct parallels in Judaism, where Deuteronomy talks about honest weights and measures. We covered that last time. But what's important is it doesn't just discuss honest weights and measures. It commands them. There's no authority that should be allowed to exclude a community from commerce. And that was going on through Judaic history. Certain cultures, and you can recognize this through what happened in World War II, all kinds of things, they were set aside. They were put aside and not allowed to participate. So Judaism has at its core also honest weights, honest measures. So there's these core principles that just keep moving through world religions. Any other commentary on Judaism?
No, just that, again, we know that throughout history, the Jews have been mistreated in many ways, and usually it has to do with money. Even going back to like 13th century England, the English government more or less forced the Jewish people into not being able to take part in any markets other than banking, in which they were forced to collect interest, and then they turned around and blamed them for ruining the economy for the interest. And again, you mentioned, we're probably most familiar with World War II. Again, Jewish people were not allowed to own shops. They weren't allowed to take part in commerce in any way. And had they had Bitcoin at that time,
right,
they could have absolutely taken care of everyday business using Bitcoin. Because, again, it can't be manipulated. It can't be shut down.
And that is one of the, and I'll take a little side road here, that's one of the core principles we want everybody to understand about Bitcoin. It's often said that your worst enemy can use Bitcoin and you can use Bitcoin. And just because your worst enemy is using Bitcoin doesn't mean that you shouldn't use Bitcoin. It is absolutely neutral money. People ascribe certain values to the use of money. They say, oh, the American dollar is good because X, Y, and Z. We've been a good actor on the world stage, and that's debatable. But the reality is that the money does have a personality. It does act in certain ways. When we created the petrodollar, made it, along with that came a lot of responsibility that we didn't manage so very well. Let's talk about Buddhism because it has similar concepts too. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment to impermanent things. That's something I can go along with. We are attached to the junk that we collect. I'm going through that right now, trying to figure out how in the world I'm going to unleash myself from all the junk I collected over the years. Fiat money, by design, is a very impermanent point of money. You said last time that there's never been a fiat currency that has survived. What happens is that the money has to depreciate. It has to be worth less over time as interest goes up. Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million, right? So it rewards patience and long-term thinking and absolutely ignores all the ways that fiat behaves right now. So it is in keeping with, so far, most of the world religions that we've commented on. Let's talk about Hinduism. If you are like us, you read Siddhartha in high school, and maybe they don't do that anymore, but they talked a lot about karma. Karma is everything in Hinduism. It requires right actions in all areas of life. The use of dishonest weights and measures is exactly opposite karma. It's not neutral. They respect being karma neutral, if I can coin a phrase. It means that in every aspect of their life, they should not do anything that moves a scale either way. Bitcoin is absolutely a neutral money, as we've talked about. And what you earn is what you keep in Bitcoin. It doesn't inflate, it doesn't debase, it just is. If it increases in value over time, let me see if I can get away with this without being upbraided again for saying the I word. If you have Bitcoin, and at some point in the future you have more spending power with that Bitcoin, so far I'm good. you have seen an increase in value, and so in that sense, I'm about to say the I word. I'll just say it. Investing in Bitcoin makes sense. It does, but you have to measure Bitcoin against Bitcoin. Correct me.
I'm not going to correct you. I'm just going to replace the word invest with transition. Okay. I'm stubborn that way.
Well, you are. You're a pain in you know what. So what does all this mean? Why are we taking so much time with this? We're taking time with it to point out that as we transition to this new form of money, and hopefully sooner rather than later, there has to be certain attributes about that money. It has to be neutral. It can't favor the U.S. It can't favor oil-producing nations. It can't favor European nations. It can't favor African nations. It just has to be a store of value that is permanent, and everybody has access to it, and everybody knows what it's worth. That means it needs to be auditable. It needs to be a consistent volume that will top out. And it needs to be able to be used by the world's worst and the world's best. Money can't have a personality. It's just an exchange. Go ahead.
Let me just add that ironically, or maybe on purpose, the first two religions we talked about were Islam and Judaism. Two religions that are pretty much mortal enemies right now. Mm-hmm. And yet we found areas of commonality between them.
When it comes to money, yes. Because
yeah, that's what it meant.
If you bring it down to core basic humanity, and I'm going to suggest this in a minute. You're going to think I'm crazy. People all have the same desires, wants, needs. We all want to be able to trade equitably. We all want to be able to exchange our time, energy, the effort we make for a currency. The only reason we have to exchange it for a currency is because we all live outside of our immediate social circles. If I lived in the middle of the desert with my family and friends, and we all had different talent, skill, and ability, I wouldn't need money. I would just be able to trade my time, energy, and effort for your time, energy, and effort. If I needed a house built, I would have a friend that could do that. If I needed to garden, I would have a friend that could do that better than I could, and I'd trade out something with them. I'm still trying to figure out what I could offer, but, talking or something would be valuable, I suppose. But you get the point. Within a community that's closed, we wouldn't need money. We just trade. The world is a bigger place than that. And we have come to the point where we need to exchange value between cultures. Bitcoin does that without any personality. So what does that mean for the Strait of Hormuz? Go ahead. You had another point.
No, I was going to say, you said without any personality. I was going to add, or prejudice.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Prejudice comes into money all the time. And we should, again, going to give a commercial for the book, read The Creature from Jekyll Island. It shows you how fiat currency is set up to perpetuate prejudice. And I'll just let you discover that for yourselves. So in the news recently, there's been a lot about the Strait of Hormuz. And without getting too political, it's been kind of interesting. And we were all, the media, X, Truth Social, all of that, was railing against Iran for shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. And then they got excited, and Bitcoin increased in dollar value a little bit as a measuring stick, because they said, you know what? We're going to accept Bitcoin with a dollar value per barrel of oil on the container ship that comes through. You send an email, within seconds you transfer your Bitcoin to us, and you come through. And that was not what anybody saw coming. That was a real valuable use case for Bitcoin. Now, it happened to be with somebody that's not our friend, but it proved the value of the use case. What happened roughly a week later? Donald President Donald Trump said, well, if you're going to close the Strait of Hormuz, I'm going to close the Strait of Hormuz. What does that mean? Whether the Iranians close the Strait of Hormuz without a tax or a toll on Bitcoin, and Donald Trump wants to close the Strait of Hormuz, the net effect of it is still the same. It's closed. So the world economy is going to suffer. Now, what he's doing in his chess match is saying, well, I'll just make sure your economy suffers too. I sure can't let you collect, multiple millions of dollar value in Bitcoin and just create a new form of wealth for yourself. So he's definitely between a rock and a hard place. And as weird as it sounds, Bitcoin is going to be what straightens this thing out. Because we have to let bad actors access Bitcoin so that good actors can access Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin is not the problem. The money is not the problem. People's behavior is the problem. And ultimately, taking it to the nth degree, what happens? Nobody can afford wars because everybody's trading in Bitcoin. You can't just print your way into a war. You want to expand that a little bit?
I won't really expand that. I was just going to say that that's an excellent point. I mean, if everybody were on the same standard, and if the money could not be manipulated, and if you could not print more overnight without anybody knowing or approving it, you absolutely could not afford these wars. Now, if your war is based on survival, if somebody's attacking you and you have to defend yourself, you're going to have to figure out another way, but you're going to have to cut corners somewhere else.
Absolutely. The hard, cold fact is that we are paying for the war with fiat dollars based in nothing. We're just the military presence, which is, people can't comprehend how expensive this is. It's crazy. It's absolutely monetized through debt. That debt is a quiet tax on every dollar in the known universe, especially to the American people. What Bitcoin can do is separate money from power. So they try to use Bitcoin, and they're like, I can't spend trillions of dollar value in Bitcoin. I can't. It would either cease to be viable because it would be so expensive nobody could get any, or they would have to figure out another way to solve the problem rather than fighting over it, which would be a really great thing.
This is a provocative statement here, Steve, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but banks love wars. All wars are bankers' wars under the fiat system. Again, the creature from Jekyll Island goes into this with many examples. The banks finance both sides of the wars often.
Yes.
So that they can keep their money flowing.
Let's go ahead and dig in there a little bit because you've said a lot. It is true, and this will make people uncomfortable. I can't believe I'm saying this, considering where I was 6 or 7 years ago. It is absolutely true that bankers finance both sides of every war. And there are entire states that have been put into position as either a false flag or as a patsy or in some other way to manipulate the world stage to perpetuate war. That's a big statement. So what's the solution? Either everybody buys into Christian principle and says, take care of your salvation by believing in Jesus Christ and understanding what he did for you on the cross, or you take the best tenets of world religions that say basically do no harm. So here's where all of this winds up. If you're like me and like Greg, you probably are looking at the news and then just turning it off. I'm not talking about the broadcast media news. That's not worth watching. That's just entertainment, or it's there to spin you up. But if you are listening to things like the X22 report or any number of good news outlets, you can't keep track of it all. You have to put yourself in the mind of people that are making huge moves in the world, and we don't know half of it. We don't even know a third of what's going on. So what do? What we do is stay humble, meaning I can't control the world. I can control what happens to me and mine, and stack sats. Because that's the only thing that's going to be of any value. If we're in the middle of a huge war, running up more debt, and I don't think war is going to be, tanks and airplanes and that kind of thing. It is now. But it's going to be financial. There's something huge coming. And I happen to believe that President Trump's latest move, closing the Strait of Hormuz, which makes me laugh. It's already been closed, and he's closing it. I'm going to close it harder. It's silly. It's stupid. Affecting the world, because 20%, I don't know if you've all seen a map of the Strait of Hormuz, but it's about 20 miles from shore to shore. You've got Iran up here, and you've got on the other side of this body of water, you've got the UAE and Saudi Arabia. UAE and Saudi Arabia have a pipeline to carry their crude. They don't have to use the strait. Everybody else has to use the strait. About 20% of the world's oil and natural gas goes through, when the strait's operating, the Strait of Hormuz. So it's a huge battle. It has huge impact on what happens in the world economy. And it's been closed. And now it's double closed. I can't get my head around it. It makes me laugh. I mean, generally...
Double secret probation.
Double secret probation. That's it. So stack sats. Stay humble, stack sats. Build it for yourself. Own it yourself. Custody it yourself. And don't worry about anything else. You can worry about the fact that you don't have enough stats stacked, like I do. But generally, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any sense to worry. It just doesn't. Just, you're going to be so far ahead, or your children or your grandchildren will be so far ahead. We don't know how soon all of this is going to happen. But Bitcoin will become the world standard.
Steve, I think one key takeaway here, regardless of what's really going on politically or in the war, I don't know how many people still think of Bitcoin as just some kind of magic internet money. Some people call it a Ponzi scheme. That's not for this episode, but boy, oh boy. You talk about a Ponzi scheme. That's the Federal Reserve. Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. Now I'm getting off track. But given that Iran has asked for Bitcoin as a toll, for lack of a better word, you have to understand now that Bitcoin is not going anywhere. It's known by all countries. It's known throughout the world. How and when we adopt it remains to be seen. But it's not going away.
Yeah, it can't. There was a time when, let's just say it like it is, the U.S. tried to kill Bitcoin because we were dependent and supporting the petrodollar. And Bitcoin absolutely runs against everything that the petrodollar stands for, everything that the banking system does, is threatened by Bitcoin. What did they do? Well, if you can't beat them, join them. You've heard that before, right? So instead of Bitcoin in self-custody, they said, here, buy an ETF. People said, okay, because that's easy, right? It's easy to buy an ETF. It's something that you can even do inside of your 401k up to a certain percentage. It's easy. What they were doing was, you talked about this last time, they were making the way for a federal cryptocurrency. That's the way to put it. Why not bypass all of that and just own Bitcoin? That's what makes sense to me. Then I don't care what the world does. It doesn't make any difference. The petrodollar has kind of, and I'll try to summarize the episode here, it's been the invisible thread. Iran has been kind of an ugly actor on the world stage for a long while. And energy exporters are, at least on the evidence of last week, looking at using Bitcoin as the transaction layer. Because if it's neutral, then commerce can just continue. If the dollar continues to weaken, and it will, we don't have to go look for an alternative. Because Bitcoin is already here. It already is the alternative. So every war, and obviously we're in a war, every war is just another argument for the use of a a global reserve or a global reserve currency other than the dollar. And if it uses Bitcoin, no nation has control of that currency. Every barrel of oil settled outside the US dollar is just another argument for a neutral reserve asset. Oops, lost my ear. I can only hear you on the right now.
That's where I like to be, on the right.
Set him up a softball and he smacked it out. The basis of what we were trying to express to everyone today is the discussion of currency is not just an academic exercise. It's not just an economic exercise. It's a moral exercise. Does using the US dollar help your moral cause or run against your moral cause? The fact of the matter is that whether you're Hindu or Muslim or Christian, it runs against what your religion teaches. Absolutely. It transfers wealth from the poor, honestly, who hold cash. If you hold cash, unless you hold a whole lot of it, you're probably very poor. Because the wealthy, the ones that manipulate the world directly, hold assets. They hold things that impact what happens to the dollar. It funds wars, it funds debt, it does all kinds of things. For hodl boomers, people like us, it makes sense with our excess capital to move it to Bitcoin, transition it to Bitcoin, because it makes the world a better place. You're smiling because I didn't use the I word.
Exactly. And if you did use that I word, I was going to use another I word.
I can't imagine what that would be. So this is the end of our discussion of world religions and Bitcoin and tying it to current events. It's just kind of funny that we're closing the Strait of Hormuz, double secret exposure, closing it. And it's real obvious why we're doing it. It's to continue to manipulate things. We're trying to shut off the economic missiles that Iran might have. Wouldn't it be better just to isolate Iran? Say, no, you guys, you're out of the sandbox. You don't get to play. Now, I'll share one final theory with you. And this one's a little out there. I don't know if I believe it. Some people say that President Trump, playing this 5-layer chess, whatever he plays, he is trying to actually close the Strait of Hormuz and to cause the Western countries all to be in one region of the world taking care of ourselves. Think about that. It goes back to the Monroe Doctrine of the West, the United States, and countries around us are going to operate kind of not on the global scale, but within our own region. That's a possibility. We don't, as a nation, need the Strait of Hormuz. We have plenty of oil. We just have politicians that are arguing about taking it out of the ground. That's a possibility, I suppose, that he's doing this to actually fail in the Strait of Hormuz. I'll think about that some more and tell you more about what I believe. Any comments? Anything else?
This is not my idea or slogan. I've seen it in multiple Bitcoin groups and facilities and meetings and such. Bottom line is, fix the money, fix the world. That's essentially what we're talking about here. We talked about multiple religions that all are against the system of debt that we're in. Fix it, find an area of commonality, you're going to fix most of the world's problems.
Yeah,
you
I think
can't
Larry
afford.
Please go ahead.
You can't afford war, except for the most dire of cases where your security is at risk.
Yeah.
Rather than it being a business interest, it should be only for a survival interest. Otherwise, wars can't be afforded.
Yeah, and remember that all of the wars have been put forward by the banking industry. That's just the reality. And I think we'll give credit where credit is due. It's Mr. Larry Lepard, an ex-friend of mine, and I don't mean ex as in no longer. I mean a friend on X. He is he is very fond of saying, "Fix the money, fix the world," and he is been in the money industry for a long time, and he knows the truth. He wrote The Big Print. I'd suggest that you read it. It's a good read, really is. All right, I think we've covered it. Let me do the YouTube obligatory. Please like and share this. We know we're just hitting the surface of a lot of these things, but we do this because we believe there are people like us out there that were kind of late to Bitcoin. Greg, not so much. Me, yeah, I was late. That's not true. I'm exactly on time, but I in terms of how long I've been involved, not that long. There are a lot of folks that are this close to making the transition to Bitcoin and just need a push or need to be more comfortable or need to understand what this thing is. It certainly isn't a trade mechanism. It is not meant to be, and I'll say this word, invested in. Investment suggests that you're going to have a return. The return on Bitcoin is freedom. That's been said by a lot of podcasters too. But in reality, that's what it's about. When you replace the fiat currency system that funds every single war, that manipulates all kinds of things, with a money that can't be manipulated, can't be debased, you're in great shape. So like, share, subscribe, go to hodlandtees.org. I could use the money, to be honest with you. And
you can pay in Bitcoin.
You can pay in Bitcoin. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd be happy to accept that. If you go to hodlandtees.org and you pay in Bitcoin, you get an automatic 10% discount. Or if it's your first order ever, you'll get an automatic 10% discount. And you'll find that our prices are pretty darn competitive. We don't charge a ton for this stuff. So shameless plug, there it is. Next week, a little bit of a surprise for you. I'm not going to talk to you about it, but we're gonna go into one thing, and we're going to cover it rather deeply. And I think you'll enjoy it. We'll talk to you soon. We love you all.
See ya.
See ya.